My son said I killed his mom and deserved to rot. Lawyer read her confession. I get $2.1 million, he gets. They said it wouldn't get worse. They lied. When I first heard the words, "You killed her and you deserve to rot," I didn't fall apart. Not immediately. Because shock has a strange way of making you freeze before the heart breaks. I was sitting in my living room, the same spot where I'd watched home movies of happier days. A spot where laughter used to echo. Where her voice used to feel alive instead of haunting. And then my son, Jared, walked through the door and dropped the bomb. Those exact words. Cold. Sharp. Final. Like a steel blade aimed at the part of me that still believed family meant unconditional love. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stared at him. He stood there, eyes burning with accusation, hands clenched like he was fighting tears or rage or both. "You knew she was sick," he said. "You knew what was happening. And you still let her die." I opened my mouth. Words came, but they didn't form into anything coherent at first. Did he really believe that? Could he honestly believe I had wanted her gone? My wife, Emma, had been gone for nearly a year. A year of grief. A year of silence where her absence was louder than any argument we ever had. A year in which I had taken her to doctor after doctor, specialist after specialist, pharmacy after pharmacy. I had begged for options. I had researched treatments. I had held her while she burned with fevers that felt like they wanted to melt her soul. And here he stood, accusing me like I had stood by with my hands in my pockets. "It's your fault," he said again. "You could have done more. You could have saved her. But you didn't." I swallowed hard. "Jared," I said gently, "that's not how it happened." He shook his head violently. "No, you didn't do enough. That's the same thing." Those words landed deep. Not because they were true. But because they came from the person I loved most in the world. My son. My boy. My heart was breaking, but not the way he meant it to. The week before that day had been filled with legal documents, funeral arrangements, and the sort of logistical chaos no one ever warns you about until you're in it. Emma's death certificate. Her bank accounts. Her social media accounts. Her notes. When she died, the last thing she left behind was a collection of letters. Not bills. Not instructions. Letters, dated, sealed, and clearly marked "read only after I'm gone." I didn't open them immediately. I couldn't. Not then. Not in that fog where the world had lost its meaning. But 2 months later, when grief became routine instead of shock, I opened the first one. Her handwriting was familiar. Slightly slanted. Delicate but confident. It was addressed to me. And when I read it, my tears didn't come. My breath left instead. She had written. "If anything should happen to me, know this: I loved you more than fear. More than pain. More than time itself. And if there is a choice to be made between extending my life and preserving my dignity, choose dignity." I blinked. Her last request was not to cling to life at any cost. Her last request was peace. But Jared hadn't seen the letter. Not yet. And it was the second letter that would change everything. That afternoon, when it finally happened, the confrontation, I wasn't prepared for Jared's rage. When he stormed in, the mail still in his hand, face flushed with hurt and fury, I knew it wasn't going to be a calm discussion. He thrust the letter at me like it was evidence. "You knew," he shouted. "You knew she didn't want treatment and you let her die." I took the letter from him slowly. My hands trembled slightly. But my voice was steady. "Jared, this letter wasn't meant to blame anyone." He scoffed. "Then what was it meant for? To twist the knife?" I inhaled deeply. "Let me explain. I showed him the first. My body is tired. I showed him the first letter. My heart is weary. Then the second. I don't want machines to prolong this one was different. What's already slipping from me. Written just days before she died. If there comes a time when medicine can no longer make me whole, I want grace, not torment. I want dignity, not fear, and I want you both to remember love first. That was the second letter. The third was addressed to both of us. And as I read it aloud, my voice breaking just once or twice, Jared's expression shifted, slowly, reluctantly, painfully. My illness has been long. I've fought bravely and tired fiercely. I want no regrets. If my life is to be remembered, let it be remembered as joy, courage, and choice, not desperation. That was her confession. That was her last request. That was her truth. But truth doesn't always land gently. Especially when pain has already taken deep root. Jared didn't soften. Not at first. He stormed out, slamming the door with a finality that echoed in the hall. I stood there, holding the letters, trying to absorb the fact that love and grief can speak the same language in different dialects. And one of them had clearly been misunderstood. The next week was silent. No calls. No messages. No visits. Just the echo of a fractured son's hurt and a grieving father's broken hope. Then, a letter from a law firm arrived. Not addressed to me. To me and my attorney. It was titled, Estate of Elizabeth and Bennett, Last Will and Testament Reading Notification. I stared at it for a long time. Elizabeth and Bennett, that was Emma's full name. Her will hadn't been opened yet. Why? I didn't know. But someone had filed it. Someone had taken responsibility. Someone who understood the importance of legal closure. 2 weeks later, we were in a large meeting room at the law firm. Jared sat across from me, arms folded, eyes distant. He didn't look at me once. The lawyer, Ms. Rivera, stood at the front with a binder thick enough to hold every last page of someone's life. This will, she began gently, was written in full capacity 2 years.
For more inspiring and heart-touching stories like this, please subscribe to our channel.
Ago. All clauses were notarized and witnessed. It was stored securely until today. She paused. Given that we have now completed probate procedures, we can read the contents publicly. I nodded. Even though my throat was tight. The lawyer opened the binder. My first duty, she read, is to honor the testator's wishes as clearly expressed. Page after page, the document spelled out. Guardian designations. Medical directives. Financial distributions. Trust fund stipulations. Personal letters and final statements. Then she turned to a specific section. Distribution of assets, Section 7A. It was the part everyone cared about. Elizabeth Rebecca Bennett bequeaths the following. She looked at me slightly. To her husband, Thomas Bennett, all personal effects, jewelry, trusts held jointly, and the family home at 42, Hawthorne Lane. That was expected. Then. Section 7B. Bequeathment to her son, Jared Bennett, a structured inheritance trust totaling $2,100,000, funds to be released in staged distributions tied to milestones and personal growth evaluations. $2.1 million. My breath caught. Jared blinked. Then. Section 7C, Special Provision. The lawyer paused. This section states that should any beneficiary dispute, misunderstand, or challenge the testator's medical directives or death with dignity statements, the distribution shall be reviewed by an independent adjudicator, and trust access may be modified accordingly. Everyone in the room went quiet. Ms. Rivera continued. Section 8, Final Statement. She cleared her throat. To my beloved husband and son, if you are reading this, understand this wasn't written in anger or fear. It was written in love. I have lived with courage and chosen dignity because I have always believed life is sacred. But I also believe that suffering without purpose is not life, it is pain without direction. My hope is that you both remember love first. I felt tears welling, but I blinked them away. Jared sat rigid. Jared sat rigid. His face pale. The lawyer closed the binder. Those are the terms of the will. Silence followed. Then his voice, shaky, distant, barely there. That's my money. The room held its breath. That reaction wasn't unexpected. But it was revealing. Because the confusion wasn't about loss. It was about belief. About who misunderstood whom. That's where. That's my money. Jared's voice wasn't loud. It wasn't explosive. It was hollow. Like something inside him had collapsed and the only thing left standing was entitlement wrapped in shock. The lawyer didn't react emotionally. She had seen families fracture over far less than $2 million. It is a structured trust, Ms. Rivera clarified calmly. Not immediate access. Jared turned to her sharply. What does that mean? It means, she continued, flipping a page, the $2.1 million is divided into conditional distributions. The first portion is available immediately, $150,000, provided the beneficiary signs acknowledgement of the medical directive clause. Silence. Jared stiffened. You mean I have to admit she chose this? He said slowly. The lawyer didn't flinch. You must acknowledge that her passing was aligned with her documented medical wishes. He let out a short, bitter laugh. So I have to sign off that my dad didn't kill her. The word hung in the air. Kill. I didn't look at him. I didn't defend myself. I was tired of defending truth. Ms. Rivera remained composed. No one is accusing anyone of murder. The medical records clearly indicate end-stage organ failure with a signed do not resuscitate order. Jared's jaw tightened. She wouldn't have signed that if he hadn't convinced her. There it was. The real wound. Not money. Not legality. Manipulation. He believed I had influenced her. Controlled her. Decided for her. The lawyer calmly slid another document forward. Attached to the will is a video statement. Both of us looked up. A video? I asked. Yes. Recorded 6 days before her passing. My heart skipped. I hadn't known about that. Jared stared at the folder like it might explode. I'd like to see it, he said. The lights in the conference room dimmed slightly as the screen flickered on. And there she was. Emma. Thinner. Paler. But still unmistakably herself. Her eyes were tired, but clear. Her voice, though softer, carried the same calm. Strength she'd always had. Hi, she began gently. If you're watching this, it means I'm no longer there to explain things myself. I felt my throat close. Jared didn't move. I want to make something very clear, she continued. My decision to decline further invasive treatment was mine. Not Thomas's. She smiled faintly. He argued with me, actually. My head snapped up slightly. Jared's eyes flicked toward me for the first time that day. He wanted every possible option. Every trial. Every surgery. I was the one who said no. Her voice trembled just slightly. I am not afraid of dying. I am afraid of suffering without meaning. The room was silent except for the quiet hum of the projector. If you're angry, she said softly, please don't aim it at him. He loved me enough to let me choose. Her eyes seemed to look directly through the screen. Jared, my sweet boy. I know you. You will want someone to blame. But sometimes there is no villain. There is only time. Jared inhaled sharply. His posture shifted, but he still didn't speak. I need you to grow from this. Not harden. The screen went black. Silence. Heavy. Unavoidable. I didn't look at my son. Because I didn't want him to see the tears in my eyes. The lights came back on. Ms. Rivera folded her hands. Emma wanted clarity, she said gently. That is why this recording exists. Jared stared at the blank screen. Then at the table. Then at his hands. I didn't know, he muttered. No, I said quietly. You didn't. He let out a long breath. But that doesn't change how it feels. I know. He looked at me then. Really looked at me. You let her go, he whispered. I held her hand when she asked me to, I replied. That difference mattered. But grief rarely cares about technical distinctions. Does that even mean? It means, she explained, that the majority of the trust, $1.95 million, is tied to behavioral milestones. Behavioral, he repeated incredulously. Yes. Emma established 3 primary conditions. She read carefully. Condition 1, the beneficiary must complete certified grief counseling for no fewer than 12 consecutive months. Jared's eyebrows shot up. You've got to be kidding me. She continued. Condition 2, the beneficiary must engage in documented volunteer service in hospice or palliative care environments for a minimum of 200 hours. His jaw dropped. You want me to work in a place like that? She didn't respond emotionally. She simply continued. Condition 3, the beneficiary must submit a signed letter acknowledging understanding of Emma's medical directive and relinquishing any claim of coercion or malpractice against her spouse. Silence filled the room again. Jared leaned back in his chair slowly. This is insane. No, I said quietly. It's structured. He shot me a glare. So you knew about this? I knew there were conditions, I admitted. Not specifics. He ran both hands through his hair. She set me up. No, I said firmly. She set you forward. He laughed bitterly. She doesn't trust me. She wanted you to grow. He stood abruptly, pacing now. So what? I jump through hoops and then I get paid? It's not payment, I said. It's preparation. He stopped pacing. That's easy for you to say. You already get everything. That wasn't true. Money didn't replace a wife. But I understood his perspective. The lawyer intervened gently. Mr. Bennett, she addressed him, your mother did not design this to punish you. She was concerned about unresolved anger. The counseling and volunteer work are tied to personal development, not financial leverage. He shook his head. This feels like control from beyond the grave. No, I said softly. It's love from beyond the grave. He didn't respond. We left the office. Separately. He walked out first. I followed minutes later. Outside, the sky was overcast. Gray. Appropriate. As I reached my car, I saw him standing near his, staring at nothing. I approached slowly. Jared. He didn't turn. She knew I blamed you, he said quietly. Yes. And she still left me money. Yes. Why? I took a deep breath. Because she believed in who you could become. Not just who you are. He finally looked at me. I don't know if I can sit in a hospice. Then you're not ready for the money, I said gently. He clenched his jaw. You make it sound simple. It isn't. Silence lingered. Then he said something that surprised me. Were you scared? Of what? Letting her go. My throat tightened. Yes. He swallowed. I was scared too. That was the first honest bridge between us. Not accusation. Not defense. Fear. Shared. Human. That night, I sat alone in the living room again. The same chair. The same silence. But something had shifted. The anger wasn't gone. The pain wasn't healed. But truth had entered the room. And truth changes the temperature of grief. Around 9 p.m., my phone buzzed. A text from Jared. "I'll do the counseling." I stared at the screen. Then another message followed. "I'm not doing it for the money." A pause. "I just don't want to keep being this angry." I closed my eyes. For the first time in a year, hope felt possible. But hope is fragile. And growth doesn't come without resistance. Because what neither of us knew yet was that grief counseling would uncover something deeper. Something Jared hadn't admitted. Something Emma may have anticipated. And when that truth surfaced, it wouldn't just affect the inheritance. It would change how my son saw me forever. 3 weeks after the will reading, Jared started therapy. He didn't tell me at first. I found out because his car was parked outside Dr. Mallory's office when I happened to drive past the medical complex one Tuesday afternoon. I didn't stop. I didn't call. Growth isn't something you hover over. It's something you allow. That evening, he showed up at my house unexpectedly. He looked different. Not broken. Not angry. Just quieter. "I had my third session today," he said, standing awkwardly near the doorway. "That's good," I replied gently. He nodded once. Then stepped inside. We sat across from each other, the same living room that had witnessed our worst argument. "I didn't realize something," he said after a long silence. "What?" "I wasn't just mad at you." I waited. I was mad at her. The honesty hung heavy in the air. "That's normal," I said softly. He shook his head. "No. It's not just normal. It's ugly. Anger usually is." He ran a hand across his face. I felt abandoned. That word hit differently. Abandoned. "I know she was sick," he continued. "I know she was tired. I know she chose dignity." He swallowed. "But part of me still thinks, she chose to leave." I didn't interrupt. Because that confession wasn't about logic. It was about hurt. Dr. Mallory had apparently asked him a question that shifted everything. "Who are you really angry at?" "At first," he said me. "Then doctors. Then fate." But in his fourth session, he admitted something he'd never voiced. "I'm angry that she stopped fighting." His voice cracked slightly. I needed her to keep fighting. And there it was. Not accusation. Not blame. Need. The child inside the adult who wasn't ready to say goodbye. "I keep replaying the hospital room," he said quietly. I closed my eyes briefly. I remembered it too well. The machines. The soft beeping. Her hand in mine. Her eyes steady. "She asked you to turn off the ventilator," he said. "Yes." "You did it." "Yes." Silence. That's the part one can't get past. I leaned forward slightly. "She didn't ask you," I said gently. "She asked me because she knew you wouldn't be able to." He didn't argue. Because it was true. He would have said no. He would have clung. He would have demanded another week. Another hour. Another chance. But she didn't want that. "She didn't want you to remember her like that," I continued. "Wires. Tubes. Fear." He stared at the floor. "She made me promise." Jared looked up sharply. "Promise what?" "That if the moment came, I wouldn't hesitate." Silence fell again. "I didn't hesitate," I whispered. He closed his eyes. "And I think that's why I hated you. Because I was strong when he couldn't be. Because I carried the decision he wasn't ready to hold. I thought you were cold, he admitted. I was terrified. He nodded slowly. I think I needed you to break. That truth cut deeper than the accusation ever did. You needed me to collapse, I said. Yes. So you wouldn't feel alone. His eyes filled with tears. I felt like I lost her and then I lost you too. I swallowed hard. I never left. You shut down. I was grieving. So was I. His voice rose, but not in rage. In desperation. Why didn't we talk about it, he asked. Because we were both trying to survive it. Silence. Then he said something that shifted everything again. There's something else. I waited. In therapy, we talked about control. He hesitated. Mom always protected you. I frowned slightly. What do you mean? She defended you. Even when you argued. I shook my head. That's not true. It is, he insisted. Every time you disagreed, she softened it. Every time you were strict, she balanced it. I leaned back slowly. That's marriage, I said. No, he replied. It was more than that. He inhaled deeply. I think part of me believed she was trapped. The word stunned me. Trapped? With you. I felt something shift in my chest. That's why I was so quick to blame you, he continued. I built this story in my head that maybe.
She stayed strong for us, but wasn't happy. I stared at him. Did she ever tell you that? No. Did she ever show it? He hesitated. No. Then where did that idea come from? He exhaled slowly. I don't know. But I did. It came from distance. From years of subtle misunderstandings. From moments where discipline looked like dominance. From a son who saw fragments, but never the full picture. She loved me, I said quietly. I know that now, he replied. How? He swallowed. Dr. Mallory asked me to write down every memory of her that involved you. Silence. And every single one included respect. That word settled between us. Respect. She never looked afraid of you, he admitted. She looked anchored. I didn't realize I was holding my breath until I exhaled. That changes things, he said quietly. Yes, I agreed. It makes my accusation uglier. It makes it human. He shook his head. No. It makes it wrong. He sat there for a long moment. Then he said something that caught me completely off guard. I think I owe you an apology. I didn't respond immediately. Because apologies are fragile. They need to land without being rushed. I accused you of something unforgivable, he continued. Not just emotionally. Legally. My chest tightened. You told me I deserved to rot, I said gently. He nodded slowly. I was cruel. Yes. I can't take that back. No. But I can admit it. Silence stretched. Then I nodded once. I accept. He blinked. You're not angry? I was, I admitted. But anger doesn't build anything. He looked at me differently then. Like he was seeing a version of me he hadn't recognized before. 2 days later, something unexpected happened. Dr. Mallory called me. Not to discuss confidential details, but to invite me. Jared requested a joint session, she said. My heart pounded slightly. A joint session. That meant he was ready to confront something deeper. When I arrived at the office the following week, Jared was already seated.
He didn't look defensive. He looked determined. Dr. Mallory began gently. Today isn't about blame, she said. It's about rewriting narrative. Jared nodded. Then he turned to me. I need to say this out loud, he began. He inhaled slowly. I blamed you because it was easier than accepting that Mom chose to leave on her terms. I didn't interrupt. I felt powerless, he continued. And I turned that into accusation. Silence. I wanted someone to punish. My throat tightened. And I chose you. Dr. Mallory watched carefully. What do you need from your father now? She asked him. Jared looked at me directly. I need to know you're not going to disappear emotionally. The vulnerability stunned me. I won't, I said quietly. Promise? I promise. He nodded slowly. And I need you to tell me what it was like. What? Being the one she asked. That was the hardest question yet. The room felt smaller. But I answered. It was the worst moment of my life, I said honestly. Because loving someone sometimes means letting them go when you don't want to. He swallowed. I thought you were relieved. I shook my head. I was destroyed. Silence fell again. And in that silence, something fragile but real began to mend. When we left the office, Jared didn't rush ahead. He walked beside me. Not behind. Not distant. Beside. As we reached the parking lot, he stopped. I'm going to do the hospice hours, he said quietly. That's good. Not for the money. I know. He looked up at the sky. I need to understand what she felt. I nodded slowly. That's brave. He gave a faint, almost embarrassed smile. I don't feel brave. You don't have to feel it to be it. He laughed softly at that. And for the first time since Emma passed. It didn't feel forced. But growth is never smooth. Because what Jared would witness in hospice would shake him harder than any argument. And what he would discover there would unlock the final truth Emma had been preparing him for all along.